In this video, we're going to take an in-depth look at iD48's control software, the ID Mixer, and show you all the features that make iD48 a powerful and flexible solution for your recording studio. First, open up the ID Mixer. This should open automatically when connecting and powering on your iD48, but to access the ID Mixer any other time, click on the ID icon and select Show Mixer. On macOS, this can be found in the top right of the screen, and on Windows this can be found either at the bottom right of the screen or under the Shortcuts button found here. This is the main page of the ID Mixer, giving you access to the functions you will need most regularly. On the left, there are the direct monitoring controls. In the center, there is the selection between the master mix and the Q mixes, and on the right is the monitor control section. It is important to note that the ID Mixer is purely for control of audio routing and monitoring, and does not affect the preamp gain or audio levels being recorded in your DAW. To break down how ID Mixer works, we will look at the controls of one input channel, in this case input 1. This channel can be renamed by double-clicking on the name at the top, entering the new name and then pressing enter. This can be useful to keep track of which inputs match your instruments or microphones. At the top of this channel strip, there are several input control buttons, letting you enable and disable additional features relating to that input. The high-pass filter button engages an analog 100Hz high-pass filter on the input, preventing rumble and issues with low end where needed. The polarity button flips the polarity of the input by 180 degrees. This is useful when dealing with phase issues between microphones in a recording situation. The pad button engages a hardware 10 dB pad on the input, enabling extremely hot signals to be accommodated on both the microphone level and line level inputs. The boost button engages a digital 10 dB gain boost, affecting not only the ID Mixer, but also the recording levels being sent to the DAW, so extremely quiet sources can be sent to your software at an ideal level. The ADC path section is new for iD48. When using the mic ADC path setting, the analog to digital converter is fed directly from the output of the built-in Audient console mic preamp. The line output insert send DB25 port can then be used as additional line outputs. The additional line output can then be used to feed external hardware such as headphone amps. When using the mic insert ADC path setting, the line outputs insert sends and insert returns ADC input DB25 ports act as an insert point. This allows you to add hardware effects, such as a hardware compressor or EQ, between the output of iD48's preamp and the ADC input. This is perfect for building vocal chains or otherwise adding effects while tracking. When using the ADC direct setting, the analog to digital conversion for this channel is fed from the insert return ADC input DB25 port, providing you a way to input line level audio whilst bypassing the iD48's built-in Audient console mic preamps for the cleanest signal path to the ADCs possible. One use case of this would be if you wish to use an external analog preamp or wish to feed in a line level signal without passing it through iD48's preamps. It is important to note that when in this mode, the signal from the mic line input is not accessible. This setting can also be used if you wish to utilize hardware effects whilst mixing in your DAW software. The line output insert send DB25 port in this mode is fed from the digital to analog converters, rather than from the built-in Audient console mic preamp, and provides additional line outputs just like on the mic ADC path setting. You can therefore feed audio from your DAW to the line output insert send DB25 port, pass this through hardware effects, and then return the processed audio to the insert return ADC input DB25 port to be re-recorded into your DAW software. For more information on switchable inserts, there is a dedicated video with a link below in the description and on our YouTube channel. Below this is a pan knob, which affects where the channel's audio is positioned in the mix's stereo field. This pan control does not affect the audio in your DAW, only the audio heard in either the master mix or Q mix. Next is the mono stereo button. When selected, this groups two channels together so their controls work as a pair. When deselected, the stereo pair reverts to two individual mono sources. Below this is the solo and mute controls. Solo isolates a source for that mix, and multiple sources can be soloed at the same time. The mute control mutes the output for that source only for that mix. At the bottom is the fader, which increases the level of the source that will be heard in the selected mix, either master mix or Q mix. This fader does not affect the audio in your DAW, only the audio heard in either the master mix or Q mix. This set of controls is duplicated across each input channel, and for optical and DAW return channels, the set of controls is the same with the exception of the top set of input controls. In the middle of the ID Mixer window is the Mix Selection section. Here is access to select which independent mix you are adjusting, including the master mix, as well as 4 Q mixes. Each mix has a level histograph which scrolls across its section to show overall levels over time, and is useful to quickly check for any signal peaking across your mixes. Each of these mixes can be renamed by double-clicking on its title, changing the text, and pressing enter. In the previous section, the set of channels in the ID Mixer have been shown affecting the master mix, which is usually the mix you as the engineer will be monitoring. However, the independent Q mixes can be used for a variety of cases, primarily creating independent headphone mixes for your artists. To change the levels of each source in a Q mix, firstly click on the Center Section tab for that Q mix. This will then move to open up that Q mix with an overall level knob, and the color of the Q mix will be illuminated around all tracks in the ID Mixer to denote that changes in level and pan will now affect that mix. When changing between Q mixes, the input controls for the 8 analog input channels will stay the same, only the pan and level fader will change to reflect the levels for that Q mix. At the top right of the ID Mixer, there are 3 buttons to show and hide groups of tracks in the Mixer window. These are Mic, which shows the analog input channels, Opt, which shows the SP-Diff and ADAT inputs, and DAW, which shows the first 10 outputs from the DAW. This can be useful to hide unused channels when creating mixes. For instance, if the optical inputs are unused, these can be hidden for easy viewing of the other mix channels. At the bottom right is the monitoring control section, which affects the master mix and the alt outputs. The Talkback button dims the master mix and also enables the Talkback channel to be sent to the Q mix outputs. This will be covered in more detail later in the video. The polarity reverse button reverses the polarity of the right speaker output of the master mix. This is useful when checking a source or mix for phase issues. The mono button sums together the left and right channels of the master mix. This is useful for checking mono compatibility of a source or a mix. This can be combined with the polarity button to compare the middle of a stereo signal with its sides to check stereo elements. The alt button reroutes the master mix output out of the designated alt speaker outputs. This is useful for referencing your mixes across 2 sets of speakers without physical repatching. The dim button lowers the level of the master mix by a predetermined amount. The cut button mutes the output of the master mix. On the front of the ID48 unit, there are 4 control buttons for accessing these monitoring functions reflected in the ID Mixer app. The Alt and Talkback functions have dedicated buttons assigned to them, but there are also 2 more function buttons that can be assigned to either cut, dim, polarity reverse, or mono. To assign these function buttons, right-click on the desired monitoring function and a drop-down menu will appear with a choice of F1, F2, or none. Once F1 or F2 is selected, the assigned hardware function button on the ID48 unit will light up when its assigned function is active. Additionally, when hovering the mouse over a monitoring function, if it is assigned to a hardware button, this will be reflected in a text pop-up showing either F1 or F2. The system panel is where more advanced changes can be made, including routing entire mixes and setting up your I/O for your studio setup. To show the system panel, with the ID Mixer open, go to the View menu at the top of the page and select Show System Panel, or use the shortcut Command 4 or Control 4 on Windows. On the left of the system panel are the functions that control I/O and monitoring. At the top of this section are controls for optical input and output. Each one can be assigned to either ADAT mode or SPDIF mode. ADAT mode enables 8 channels of audio at up to 48 kHz and 4 channels of audio at up to 96 kHz, whereas SPDIF enables only 2 channels at any sample rate up to 96 kHz. This should be set to match the protocol of the devices you are connecting ID48 to. The clock source section defines which device in your digital setup is considered the master clock. If using ID48 as a standalone device with no other digital audio devices connected to the optical connections, this will always be set to internal. If using an external device for clocking, select the appropriate choice from optical 1, 2, or word clock depending on your setup. If the clock is detected and matches your ID48 sample rate, an indicator will turn green next to the selected device. If this indicator is yellow, a sample rate mismatch may be occurring, and if the indicator is red, then no source is being registered and therefore cannot be locked onto. Below this is the word clock termination selector. Inside ID48, this enables a 75 ohm termination on the word clock input. If your ID48 is the last device in a word clock chain, then turning on the 75 ohm setting is the recommended setting. Mono mode selection defines which outputs are used whilst mono mode is activated. In center mode, both speakers output the same mono mixdown. In left or right mode, both audio channels are summed to mono and the resulting mono mix is output from only the selected speaker. The trim section offers adjustment of levels for monitoring functions found in the master monitoring section. The dim level control adjusts how much level is removed when applying the dim function. This control has a maximum of 0 dB for no level change and a minimum of -infinity, meaning a complete level cut. This can be useful as the same dim level is used in conjunction with the Talkback function. The alt level control adjusts the output volume of the alternate speaker output. This is useful when using 2 sets of monitor speakers without individual volume controls, enabling the user to match listening levels when switching between speaker pairs. This can be adjusted between minus and plus 6 dB relative to the master mix. The center of the system panel is dedicated to audio routing. There are several tabs at the top of this section which show controls in banks of 8 channels. The first page is for main outputs, and this defines sources for outputs 1 to 4 as well as the 2 headphone outputs. These are presented as stereo pairs by default. To route single channels, click the stereo button for a given output pair, and the output will change to reveal 2 mono channels, one directly below the other. For each output, there are radio buttons to choose between which source that output will receive. Each output can receive the main mix, any of the 4 Q mixes, or DAW through mode. The alt speaker option defines that an output will receive the main mix but will be deactivated until the alt button is pressed either in the monitoring section or on the ID48 hardware, at which time the main mix will be sent to any output with the alt speaker mode selected and the main mix output will be silent. The DAW through option bypasses the ID mixer for this output, enabling your own custom routing through your DAW. Choosing this option will open a warning pop-up as this option is unaffected by the volume controls for the main mix and Q mixes and will output signal at full volume. These options are the same across the line outputs on the DB25 connection and optical 1 and 2, enabling you to send the master mix and Q mixes to any output across ID48. The line outputs on the DB25 connector, found in the Line Outputs 9 to 16 tab, have an additional option for their DAW through mode. In DAW ADAT mode, audio sent from outputs 9 to 16 inside your DAW will be sent directly to outputs 9 to 16 on the rear of ID48, as well as the same relative channels on optical 1. In this way, outboard hardware can be used as inserts returning to ID48 using the ADC direct mode on inputs 1 to 8. Some DAWs have a requirement that when using hardware inserts, the input channel and output channel must have matching numbers. For instance, input 1 when used for hardware insert return must be matched with output 1 as the insert send. To accommodate for this, Each of the DB25 outputs can be set to DAW analog mode. In this mode, DAW outputs 1 to 8 are sent directly to the matching outputs on the Insert Send DB25 connection on the rear of ID48. When operating in this mode, it is important to note that by default, many DAWs use channels 1 and 2 as their master mix output. In the instance of DAW analog mode, it may be necessary to switch your DAW master output to another channel, such as DAW 9 and 10, which can then be used in the ID mixer for master mix and Q mixes, and the faders for DAW 1 to 8 may be muted to avoid feedback through outboard hardware. In the Talkback tab, there are options to select which audio input or device will be selected as the Talkback source to be sent to the Q mixers. If internal mode is selected, a drop-down appears where an input can be chosen from any of the sources on the ID48, either from an analog or optical input. In internal mode, the selected channel changes in the ID mixer to show Talkback mode. In the main mix, there is a meter but no fader, and in the Q mix pages, there is a fader for each Q mix. There is also a Talkback button on the designated channel as a shortcut to activate Talkback mode, which is also available in the monitor control section and also on a button on the front of ID48. If external mode is selected, then another audio device connected to the system can be assigned as the Talkback source. If external mode is used, then DAW 10 in the ID mixer is substituted with the external source. This channel then behaves in the same way as an internal source, with its own Talkback activation button alongside the Talkback buttons on the monitor control section and the hardware button on the ID48. When your ID mixer setup is fully configured, it is possible to save the setup as a file for recall. In this way, it is also possible to have more than one setup configuration and switch between them. Once your setup is complete, go to File and Save. This will open a dialog box to save the mixer configuration. Either enter a mix name in the box and press Save, or at the bottom of the mixer window select the option to export the mixer configuration to a file. To recall the mix configuration, go to File and Open. From this menu, you can select any pre-existing mix setup, or at the bottom of the mixer window, select the option to load the mixer configuration from a file. It is also possible to save the current mixer configuration to the ID48 hardware, so that all settings are stored for the next time the ID48 unit is powered on. To activate this, go to the Setup menu and select Store Standalone State. Loopback functionality enables routing either a stereo DAW output from channels 1 to 10, the master mix, or a Q mix to be rerouted to the USB inputs by replacing the ADAT 15 and 16 channels. To configure this, go to the Setup menu and Input Routing. Choose which output will be used as the Loopback source, or select ADAT 15 and 16 to disable Loopback and enable the respective ADAT channels to pass through. When a Loopback source is enabled, this is reflected in the ID mixer by a Loopback icon appearing on the mix that has been designated as the Loopback source. For more information on ID48, please make sure to watch some of our other videos or visit the ID48 page on our website. If you found this video useful, please give it a like. If you have any questions about ID48, then please leave a comment or get in touch with our support team. And don't forget to subscribe for more Audient news and video content.